What's up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. We are back. It's been a few days. Richard, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I am tired, but good. And I don't know why.
Too.
I think I'm just getting old. So
yeah, I am too. I didn't sleep very good last night. So we're gonna have to rally for everybody.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes.
We're gonna have to rally because we're cramming a few things in this week because we're both about to take off for a while. So we've got to put our best foot forward this week, and we can sleep next week and the weeks after. Yeah,
indeed.
Well, we are Scott Leese. That's me. That's Richard Harris. We are the co-founders of the Surf and Sales Summit and co-hosts of the Surf and Sales podcast. Thank you for paying attention to us today. We're here today with the founder of a really cool application, really cool company that Richard and I have both been playing around with for a little while. It's called Fyxer, and we're here with the founder and CEO, Archie Hollingsworth, who co-founded this company with his brother. Did you know that, Richard?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Could you co-found something? Could you be a co-founder with Taylor?
Yeah, I ask him to do it all the time, but he's too big of a wuss.
I see. So I'm second fiddle. I got it. So
yeah. Well, that also we're not related, and also neither of us know how to build things. So that's true. Problem. But my brother could build things. So Taylor, if you're listening, you're a wuss. Let's do this. Let's do this. Archie, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show.
How are you guys? You well?
We're hanging in there, man. We're aging a little bit, so we don't have as much energy as before, apparently.
Yeah. We can't take moonshots anymore. We can't do any more moonshots.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody about Fyxer, what you and your brother have built, and what problem you're trying to solve, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So, me and my brother started working together about 9 or 10 years ago. We started growing an agency business, which is also called Fyxer. If you hit Fyxer.com, you'll see the agency that we own and run as well. We built our agency bootstrapped together and grew it to 5 million ARR by the time I was 26. We worked a complete asses off to get that off the ground. And during that process, learned so much about sales, so much about like professional services, selling contracts, like managing people, everything. And that really inspired us to build Fyxer.ai. So using our agency and our knowledge, we've built this tool that's now used by thousands of people. As you can probably hear, I'm from London. It's closer to my bedtime than yours. But the inspiration has all come from that agency. That agency survives today, is thriving. We've got an awesome MD in there called Gemma. And we stepped back a couple of years ago and started Fyxer.ai. So what is Fyxer.ai? In its simplest form, it is an email tool today that organizes your emails, tells you what's important, rips out any cold emails, marketing, anything like that from your inbox. You never have to look at them again. It drafts the most amazing emails in your tone of voice that you will literally be completely wowed by. I know you two have mentioned that to me already. And then it also very cleverly selects times when you're available and creates meeting invites in a conversational way, as you would normally with your prospects. It doesn't send them to any like private links and keeps you really kind of on track.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you. Okay, this is Richard's gonna go. Scott, what am I about to do?
You're gonna go on a rant.
Yes. Do you know about what?
I have an idea, but I don't want to spoil it.
All right. So, okay. Archie, are you the coder, or is your brother the coder, or both of you?
I'm not the coder.
Okay. So here's the deal. You took way too long to explain what you do. Nobody cares about all the boxes, right? That's kind of cool. Just explain it this way. This system will automatically create your draft response to every email that's worthwhile to send an email back to. And then you can edit it before it sends. That's it. Like that is the sweetest spot that you are in. Stop over explaining it like an engineer.
Richard has now volunteered to become your first account executive.
So anyway,
he's got it all figured out.
I respect that.
And in fairness, I say this because I didn't even realize you were coming on the podcast till like the other day. Archie got introduced me a couple of weeks ago, and I've been playing around with it. So I will actually promote it, even though I'm not an advisor yet. But it's pretty fucking cool. So it does what I'm saying. I promise you. Anyway, so that's the pain you're solving, is reducing the time it takes to respond to people's emails. Like that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
and it has a whole bunch of other stuff.
Figuring out which ones are even worth responding to.
That too.
That part comes first, right? Because
totally.
The first thing that I noticed when I started using it was it just like siphons everything to these different categories, and I'm like, oh, I can get rid of all those ones. Those are not worthwhile. And then I noticed that it actually like was drafting responses and whatnot. So my question for you, Archie, is, you described it in your words as no more kind of solicitation emails, no more prospecting emails. Those are all sort of siphoned out. So my question is Fyxer the beginning of the end of cold email prospecting, if that's the case?
Well, I've got a lot of affiliation with cold prospecting because it's entirely how we built our agency.
Listen, so do Richard and I. We built
that was 5 years ago.
20 and 30 year careers doing this. I have no incentive for this to go away. But I'm just asking the question because you built this tool that rips out cold emails and whatnot. And nobody has to deal with them. It's not too big of a stretch to think, well, I wonder if that's the beginning of the end. Or maybe I'm wrong.
I really think it is. I think that one thing that we've made for ourselves is like we know what services and products we're looking for. So we will it will filter and recommend things to us proactively. So I think you've got buying agents are coming through AI where you tell it what you're looking for and it sifts through you. And then what we've done on email to LinkedIn and Slack. I'm even getting cold solicits on Slack now on different channels and networks I'm on. I don't know if you guys are as well. So applying the same methodology there. Warm is really the only way to go now. And whether that's through someone or through some other intent signal. I think there's no other way from what I see.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it feels that way to me. Go ahead, Richard.
No, I hadn't even thought about like the Slack integration and everywhere else. I've seen some stuff that does it on LinkedIn, but then LinkedIn flags your account and stuff like that. So, but I do like the Slack integration. Cool. That would be super cool. Because I am overwhelmed. I read a post the other day between Slack and Instagram and email and text messages and phone calls, and like it's just like we have made ourselves too available to be able to respond in a meaningful way, much less and only in my opinion only responding to the things that matter to us most. Right. So I think where you're at is super, super helpful to solve that problem. And so I like that piece of it, but please tell me when the Slack integration comes out, because Lord knows I need that too. What inspired you though? So, so here you are, you were 22 when you built the first company, right? I mean, at 22, what even inspired you and your brother to go, this is something we could do? Because that's amazing to me, right? Like I came out of college at 22 and I was like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to go make some money and I'm going to go learn some shit. And granted, is a different generation. It was not easy to build stuff back then. What inspired y'all to just go, let's do this?
Yeah, I guess.
And one last question. Is your brother older or younger?
He's 3 years older.
Okay.
Our stories are pretty similar. We both didn't love school or weren't that motivated, etc. We used to work together. We grew up farming. So we used to work summers together, like pretty long hours. Like we got pretty accustomed to what a long kind of hard work and reward looked like. And then kind of both grew up in the countryside, moved to London. He convinced me not to go to college after going and not really doing a lot. And you can imagine what he was up to. The move then was like, he was working in the city, smart guy, you know, working a desk of traders. I was kind of making my way up the ranks way behind him. And so the risk for me didn't seem like a lot, in terms of just like, can I make back what I'm currently earning, which is not a lot anyway. And then, you know, the risk was then on kind of him to kind of keep us going for a bit. And then I basically started working on it first, and then he joined me. We were attracted to this idea because we had discussed loads of other ideas that hadn't really worked or couldn't get going. But this idea I loved because I was so young that I didn't think people would take me very seriously if I had to meet them in person. But our agency was providing remote staff, and we were like, there's no cost to that. There's no upfront cost. There's no platform that you need to build. And also the third thing was that no one was really using Zoom. Everyone was still on phone calls. So I was like, I think I could come across like pretty eloquent on the phone, like above my age. And then like, as long as we get some sales through that exceed our costs, and we can just kind of get this thing going. And I've got the time to take at it. And then I had no understanding of this world of startups and all of that. And then like a bunch of people introduced me, and everyone was just talking about raising money. And I was like, I don't think anyone would take me very seriously at the moment. So like, thankfully that whole discussion was just kind of taken off the table for me. But then all of our customer bases were tech companies who were hiring remote staff from us. And they just, well, like we kept on seeing the same journey again and again, which is like building a piece of software, searching for a problem, like not really having any revenue or any customers, only caring about your next round, kind of being burnt out. And it was like, God, that looks horrible. So, you know, here we are kind of having our go. So,
Right.
yeah, that's a few of our lessons and kind of what inspired us to get going, and kind of encouraging each other as well, like pushing each other. One of you saying, well, I think we can do it. And the other saying, ooh, you know, pushing each other in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think youth is your advantage in the tech space, right? Like that is, as opposed to age, right?
You can maybe, let me push back on Richard here for a second. You can feel that way and see that now because we don't have.
Yes.
But if we were youthful again, or you can remember back to the beginning, did you feel like youth was on your side? I didn't.
No,
I would have agreed with Archie. But now that we're not youthful,
right?
It's like, oh fuck, I'd trade anything to switch, you know?
Right. So yeah,
but
I agree.
The opposite is true now, though, because now you enter this period where the age discrimination like hits on the higher end, and people start to look at you like, does this guy have the energy for this? What is he doing? Why does he want to do this still? How long is he going to be here? Oh, he's only going to work like 9 to 4, and he's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff starts to creep in, right?
Yep.
Works both ways.
So my first question is, you know, when you told your parents you were not going back to college, how did that go?
Yeah, I gotta say my mom was pretty worried. But my dad has like, he's pretty contrarian, like he's pretty like anti-establishment. So he's like, he was pretty pro, or like open to it.
Right.
And then I think because like I grew up, you know, with like older people in my life, like a lot of people were just doing the college thing here in the UK and like not really going anywhere. And then rolling into a job that they're not like that passionate about. And I think because I hadn't really found something I was super passionate about before then, it just like drove me to do it. But yeah, I kind of gave myself 12 months to do it. And I just kept my college place as a backup. It was like, I could always be a year or two behind. Like, it's not going to change things that much.
Yeah, no, that it's interesting because it used to be, well, you go to college to have a backup plan. Well, in some cases now, college is the backup plan if the entrepreneurial thing doesn't work out, right? Like it's an interesting shift. So how did you figure this out though, right? So you have this agency, you're doing something completely different. How did you guys realize that, wow, this kind of a tool, you know, along with AI and sort of the advent of AI in the last, 18 months was like, oh, this would be really cool. Because so often people build stuff because they're having a struggle with something and therefore they find the niche. Were you having this struggle, or were you guys just like sitting around one night, like, let's throw a bunch of ideas up on a whiteboard and this sounded cool? Or what was the genesis of Fyxer.ai?
Do you guys want like the full detail, or I can just give like high level? But yeah, there's like a lot of depth to it if it's useful.
Whatever you want to share with the world, man.
Yeah. And
Well,
I'm asking in the context for the listeners who are like, I'm not sure if I should spend time on this idea, or, you know what I mean? Like, because there's always like 6 different roads or 6 different things you could think about. So that's the context of asking the question.
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the original when we started Fyxer. We thought that it would be way more easy, like going in so green, to have way like we thought that the application of software in our agency would be much easier. And so you would have like a human assistant, but they would be with technology, and like this would intermingle really well. But like, and there was a huge amount of companies in the US doing that, and they raised a huge amount of money, and many of them died. There was like X.AI, and there was like a bunch of other ones. And we had read about them. We were maybe 6 to 12 months behind, thinking it was like a tech business. And then we were like, actually, this is not a tech business. And there was another business called Zirtual who were like, it's just people. And so we just very much focused on the people thing, because we thought that like AI then was this like slightly dirty word. That like if you said you had AI, people knew you were just like using people, and it was just a scam, really.
Still feels that way sometimes.
So yeah, the fast forward, we were like, let's just focus on this agency. And actually, like, you know, we could potentially build a tech business in our early 20s with zero experience, but like, we don't really think we're those people. And actually, like, this business is teaching us a huge amount. And one of my friends, Timo Armu, who's like an entrepreneur here in the UK, he just talked about so much about getting a win under your belt. And like, you know, I've had like older people in my life have worked till they're 70 or 80. So if you just take a bit of a longer term perspective, the idea was just like, let's get a win, and let's actually get some capital and some credibility to be able to make go to the next ladder.
Use the first win to make a bigger bet on the next one.
Yep.
Exactly.
I just had this conversation today. You just need an exit.
Yeah. And I mean, like exit or just like good cash flow.
Yes.
I would argue as well. And yes. Nathan Barry talks about this as well, which is these different ladders. And like, you can jump ladders. You can go from like being an employee to selling your, like being paid for your time to selling your time, being the next level, to kind of come up like providing that as a service. So, and then selling products. And those are kind of your 4 ladders. And you can jump steps, but like, I guess we were just maybe a bit British and being like, let's go at a step at a time kind of thing. And that's kind of how it all played out. And I guess like, you don't lie to each other when you're siblings, because you have this understanding of how each other lies, which you've like seen them lie when they're a really young child. So it's really difficult to lie to each other. Whereas like if you have a regular business partner, you can maybe just lie. So you just like can't lie. So when you're actually feeling these feelings, you just like, put Scott. This isn't a good 15
idea. Years. You just put Scott through 15 years of therapy, right there.
That's it. No, that's like brilliant insight, actually. Yes. And an argument to partner with a sibling. Yeah, I've never thought about that aspect before, but I'm smiling. I'm thinking, yeah, I think Archie's right. Go ahead, yeah. keep going. Keep going. I didn't mean to distract.
Oh yeah. So, and sorry. Feel free to cut me off as too much detail, but there's a lot of people in my life keep asking me about like, should we build this, blah blah blah, and I'm like, they're like, oh, how do you guys do it, blah blah blah, and it's actually really useful just to kind of talk it through. So there's this like history building up to this idea that we wanted to have a go at like that level one day, and we're just like, we're working out when. We did like the second thing, which we completely messed up, which I think you just got to go through, is the whole like searching for a problem, building a piece of software to just like be a software business thing. And so the thing that people haven't seen with Fyxer.ai is the like 2 or 3 products before it, where we were like basically trying to build like maybe a bit with like an Upwork competitor, like self-serve, like hire people business. We tried a like productivity SaaS tool for our team, just like did not work, like searching for a problem, etc., etc. And the issue is that I just feel like you have to go through that, or at least just do it once and get it over and done with. But like a lot of people, I think at the moment, from what I see in the AI space, and like again, it might be the Brit in me. We are an AI business ish, but like we're more of a product business. Like we're just like leveraging. We're not building fundamental models. We're just building against workflows that we really deeply understand. So it's worth considering like what workflows do you really understand and then just look to automate those. And you can either bet that the world is suddenly going to eradicate all need for humans, which a lot of people were doing at January last year with all the hysteria around AI. And they were like, right, let's build like the next agent that's going to be like the SDR that does everything. Or let's try to just automate like 2, 3, 4 hours a day of an SDR's job so that they then have double the capacity of SDRs. Like that's true value. And I think that's what we've kind of from our agency world have learned, that like real people don't suddenly change overnight. COVID was a massive lesson of that. All the habits kind of went back. All what was true, all of these old lessons in business are really true. And so what led us to this idea was that actually we were like, we're not going to bother trying to innovate really. We're just going to find workflows that we really understand, build them in a way that customers we believe will use them, and then market to the people that we already know have paid us for this. And then if that goes well, continue to market further and further. So that's our approach to it. But again, like everyone's got their own way.
It's actually really good.
Genius.
It's actually really good to hear the like step-by-step kind of logical process of it all. And I hope people go back and listen to it and like take notes. Go ahead, Richard.
I love the honesty of like, we're not an AI. we're you know, we're not really AI like everybody's claiming to be. We're using it and we're finding a workflow that just gets better. Because I think I mean, you nailed it. Like everybody's freaking out. Everybody's sitting around waiting for the AI salesperson to show up. Meanwhile, you're building one step by step by step, right? Like you're taking this one component, you know, and then I'm willing to bet if you want to talk product roadmap, I'm curious to what's next, but you may not want to say that yet. So I don't know, but it's genius.
Well, everything comes out, the world becomes aware, and a lot of people just jump to like Skynet and robots everywhere and complete eradication of humans, which may happen. But in between now and then, there's loads of steps that need to be sort of dealt with and sorted out. And there's a progression of some sort. And so to look at that and just be like, never mind the end game here. What's this next step right in front of me that we can do something with? I think that's the brilliance of it.
How did you, what gave you that epiphany to go, hold on, we're not boiling the ocean? Did it just sort of like, you kind of threw it up again on a sheet of paper, on a whiteboard, and you're like, oh, that's simple compared to let me build
which kills most startups. One of the things that kills most startups, by the way, is they try to boil the ocean. They try to be too many things to too many different people.
Yeah. So I think two or three things that stood out, and hopefully this is useful to people, because there are friends of mine who are like maybe in a role, and they're like, I don't know, head of RevOps somewhere or something like that, and they're like thinking about maybe it's time to do my own business or something like that, or maybe they've got an agency and they've been consulting for a while, maybe they're like fractional CMO, and it's like, how do I the takeaway here is like, yeah, we got this story and everything, but like, what do I actually do right now to be able to get myself a product live? And you know, if you're not technical, and actually I don't know if it was clear at the beginning, but neither of us two are technical. We have a technical co-founder as well, a guy called Matthew French, who's just insane. Shout out to Matthew, who actually, there was an article written by a guy, an entrepreneur here over the UK, which I'll send to you after this. And the article was basically how you find a technical co-founder. And he just outlines a step-by-step process. Again, I'd like to share all of these ideas of mine, but they're not. Like they're other people's. And he gives you a step-by-step process about how to attract a good technical co-founder. And the position we were in is that we just thought that we just wouldn't attract a good person back in 2016, 17, we also didn't have a good idea. But the position we found ourselves in January last year, where we're like, we have an agency, we have thousands of hours worth of data and workflows and understanding on this customer. And we have a way to market to them and a go to market. So that was the attractive thing that ultimately kind of matched us together with Matthew. So if you're in that position and you're just like, okay, what do I do? The thing that Matthew did at the beginning, which is the most impressive part of him as a CTO, is that he didn't do any coding. He just watched me work. You know, I am really our ideal customer. And the reason why like we believe in this and like we believe in this idea that AI isn't going to just suddenly remove all salespeople is that the reason why we only had one salesperson as we went to 5 million in ARR across all those years is I would have 3 of our fixers, our human assistants, doing all sorts of different tasks for me. And like even at that level, I was still really involved. I was still doing things and I was still really valuable, but I was able to then just show up to meetings, be really prepared for them, pitch well, build relationships, and all of the things behind me were really being done. And that's what we really want to just do is like get people away from being behind their computer and try and get them in front with customers in real life, building relationships, doing stuff like this. So stepping back, the process I would, if I was in your position as an employee, I would really understand a workflow either at my company or do some fractional consulting. I would then really map out what is the workflow that you want to automate. And like, let's say it's like how to find mutual connections through your network. And you're like, people spend loads of time doing that. You believe in warm intros as the future. Like, how are you going to do it? Well, you just got to look at how people are doing it today, really understand that, build a Figma map of like, this is what people are generally doing. Matt would watch like hours and hours of like me working and be like, okay, this is what Archie did, and have a really clear pie chart. And then you just look to automate each part of that. And then as things are being taken away from me, I'm then spending, and I'm as a good salesperson know where to spend my time in order to generate value.
I need Matt to come to my house and just observe me living. And then just figure out all the stuff that he can do to fix my life and eliminate all the bullshit that I'm doing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Let's get on that.
I have a question for you, Archie, because you are, in my opinion, you're very smart and you're also very calm and thoughtful about how you do things, your approach, which I do not equate to a lot of people in their 20s, right? I think the good, even founders that I know. I'm curious to this. What did you learn growing up and working on a farm that has taught you about how to approach business in such a structured manner? I've got to believe that somewhere in here there is this process, figuring something out, trying to make it more efficient. And I'm just curious if there's a connection between, your background and growth, you're growing up versus where you're going.
Well, I think that in startups, a lot of things are out of your control, and farming is no more of a place than that, where it's like out of your control. So
like what's out of control? Yeah. What's out of control?
The weather.
The weather. I know that.
Well,
unless you live in England, and then you just know it's raining all the time.
Exactly, yeah, which it has been today, believe it or not, in mid-June. So a farm can run on 3 things. You've got the weather can affect the yield, and then like your input costs, so how you manage your costs, your labor, your things that you spray on your farm, et cetera, and then the price. So you can really only you don't control the price of the input goods. You don't control the price that it's sold at. You don't control the weather, but you can control like a very small amount of things. And if you control them well, it separates you from being like an okay to a great farmer. And so maybe there's something in that. I've never really thought about it like that, but there is definitely this thing where there's a lot of things that are out of your control in terms of within startups. But like focus is the thing that we kept on realizing that if we ever lost, we would really start to like perform really badly. And so each week, like a real life example of this each week is that like we all just on a private, like on a Slack channel, we just say like the one thing we're going to do this week. And like, we really, it's okay if that was the only thing you did, but we find that focus like each week. And then at the end of the week, people check back in for that. And I would say focus is an important part of it. I'd also say that Rich, who's CEO, is my brother, is like just a very calm person. It keeps us very level, good perspective, quite like averagely good at everything. And so like, you know, kind of is quite like just balanced in this. I would like to say I'm as balanced as maybe I'm coming across, but I'm certainly not. But yeah, I would say that the thing that we really value together is like focus. And so if you're focused on like one or two things and doing them really well, you have to succeed to some degree.
Scott, how many years did it take you to
hold on,
realize
wait.
this?
I still have not realized this.
I know, that was my question. How long
I've-
did it taken you to figure that part out?
No, in all seriousness, not that long in this sense of like, if I'm trying to be really good at whatever this thing is that I'm doing, I can block everything else out in my whole entire life. Which
That
is
is your athlete. I agree. Yeah.
I know how to compartmentalize and like hyper focus. So if I was working with Richie and Archie and they're like, what are you going to do today? I'd be like, okay, I'm going to, you know, set 20 meetings this week. Right. And if that's what I say, I'll obsess over that and I'll do nothing else but focus on that. So I understand that. I feel like I have that part down pretty good. My challenge then became so easy, for lack of a better word. I'm like, well, what else can I focus on? And I'm focusing on 2 things, and then 3, and then 4. And you know, are you like, am I doing as good a job at all of them? Even when the feedback, the inputs coming back to you are like, wow, you're crushing at all of these different things. And I get that kind of like objective feedback. I must be performing well at consulting. I must be performing well as a VP. I must be performing. But I just keep trying to stretch myself farther and farther. That's my challenge. Is okay, I've got 6, 7 different companies that I run. Can I hyper focus on one thing this week at each of them? And at some point, it's like snap. Diminishing returns, you break, you broke.
You should call Elon to see how he runs so many companies. That's where you'll figure that out. So
he is not high on my list of phone a friend.
We got
personalities. What's the one thing that you are focused on accomplishing this week, Richard?
Me?
Yeah, you. Archie's giving us the playbook here. He's teaching us.
Yeah, I am focusing on adding more content to my GPT sales training bot. That's it. And making a big announcement, which you don't even know about yet.
Secret announcement, even from me. Wow. Yeah. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Archie, we appreciate you spending time with us, man. This is the part of the show where we flip it over to you.
Hold on, before he answers and asks us a question, what do you think of Scott's Liverpool FC banner behind him? You know what
Scott knows this. I'm a huge fan of Liverpool. So they're my prem team.
Good
try, Richard. Good try.
They're my home team.
All right, just making sure.
He tried to divide us, Archie.
Yes.
He's trying to start a fight. He's trying to start a fight. All right. Well, now we're at the part of the show where we flip it over to you and say, how can we be helpful to you? Do you have any questions for us? So here we are. What do you got?
Well, something I was thinking earlier about what me and my brother are talking about a lot at the moment is that here in the UK, when you say you're going to start a company and then you talk about the idea, people always go like, oh, like, did you hear that someone else is doing that? Or like, oh yeah, my friend tried a company and it like didn't really work out. And like, oh, like, and they're like, oh, are you worried about like, competition, or are you worried about all of these things? They just worry. And they like put all of their own anxieties on you. Yeah. I'm going to put a huge shout out to agency owner, Matt Iavani. We were customer of theirs on our agency business, an American company, and I have learned so much about like sales and marketing. I'm so glad to be from like you guys, you Americans, because you're just so much further ahead in terms of all of this. So really the ask to you guys is like this encouragement and this challenge that Brits have. What else have you got for us, really? Because you've got like this awesome approach to sales and marketing that we basically have been like, we're just going to follow everything in the US. And then you have this awesome approach to entrepreneurship where if I'm like, we're working on this idea, you're like, yes, Archie, I believe in you. Like you give us encouragement and you give us support and you say, you know, like you can do it. Whereas like honestly, over here in the UK, it's like a full-time job, like sort of pushing back all of the warriors around us. And actually it means that we're quite good because we can stay isolated and in our own little world. But you guys, you've done a lot for us. So what else you got?
I don't know. We might be at risk of starting the Revolutionary War all over again, depending on how we answer this question here. Yeah, I like the way you framed it in terms of the like worry and the anxiety. That's what I notice is like anytime there's an idea to do something, it's like instantaneously default mechanism why that won't work. That's what I hear from all of my like British friends and colleagues and whatnot is why it won't work. And I think that I don't know that it's that we don't have that. I think that we hear that and think, well, fuck you, I'm gonna make it work. And that's maybe some of the like American bravado and arrogance that rubs people the wrong way in other parts of the world. So because you know, candidly, like my default for a lot of things is like, I don't know about that. Right. I'm not overly optimistic, like initially. I'm this like sort of short-term pessimist and long-term optimist. And I convert it when somebody's like, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that. And then I just use that as fuel. Right. And so I think that's maybe one subtle difference.
It was made me think of one other it's made me think of one other question and maybe connected to this, which is the bit of advice I'd like, and it's something I've sort of dealt with a bit, but not for the last few years. But as I'm beginning to sell more and more into the US, like I honestly have to change a lot about like my personas because the stuff when I've tried to sell US style in the UK just crashes. People just hate it. And then
and vice versa.
Actually, yeah,
vice versa
exactly.
is true. Yeah, if I start calling, you know, the UK and I'm like guns blazing, super direct, aggressive, doesn't work. If you are in the UK and you start calling into the US and you're like very slow, very polite, very methodical, it's like, dude, get to the fucking point. Right. So it's 100%
like the beginning of the podcast.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
On some level, yeah. And you know, if we go to Germany, it would be different. If we went to Japan, it would be different. Like everybody has different styles, and understanding those personas that you're selling into and adjusting your style is mandatory. That's not like a cutesy, nice observation. That's like, yo, you actually literally have to do that if you're if you're going over to succeed. The only other thing that I would add about your initial question, and you could tell me if I'm wrong about this or not, but I think that Americans, for the most part, are more ruthless about curating who they spend time around. So if I share this idea and everybody pisses all over it too much, or I want to go do something and people piss all over the idea, at some point we're like, fuck that. I'm not spending time around that person anymore. I don't care if it's my dad, my mom, my brother, whoever,
Richard,
my best friends, Richard. Like I think we leave people, my perception is we leave people behind faster who don't serve us anymore in the way that we need support.
So
right? I don't see that happen as much with the friends in the UK that I have. It's more like, well, this is my mate. Like I'm not going to leave him behind. Whereas I'd be like, dude, my friend has like not evolved since he was 16 years old. Like I had no time in my life for this fucking guy anymore. Bye. So that's the other thing that I was thinking. Go ahead, Richard.
So a couple of things. So one, I know that is Scott to a T. I think most Americans aren't as good at it as Scott is, myself included, in terms of, being loyal too long, for lack of a better phrase. Back to your original question, it brings up the story when Kathy and I were having our kids, we decided that not even to our parents, we wouldn't tell anybody what we were naming our kids. Not one person knew the name of our kids. And the reason we did that was because everybody knew some asshole in high school with that name. Everybody knew a jerk, right? And we just didn't want to get that feedback from people, right? Once the name was chosen, right? So I think that's one thing. I wonder, and I don't know if this is true, at least in the ponds where I swim, and I think Scott mostly swims in the startup world, people are often more interested in, oh, tell me about that, more than why it's not going to work, right? Mm. And generationally, as you ask older generations, then you start to get well, this is why it won't work, right? But then in that moment, a lot of times the older generation doesn't get it, right? Like just look at the AI piece that's going around the world right now, right? And so I think that's a big piece of it for me, but that's my perception. I don't know if it's the same way, if you're telling me all your friends and most of your friends are, are startup founders like you, do they tell you why it's not going to work? Or is it the other people you're talking to, right? That may or may not be older, but maybe they're just acquaintances as opposed to friends. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a mix, really. I think it's not everyone, but it's just it's weighted so much heavier the other way than with you guys. And the encouragement is like what I'm trying to, when friends of mine come to me with ideas, or even just people I meet, I'm like, got to like go for it, and offering that perspective as well.
Yeah, the thing and this is kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, is nobody cares what you do. They care what pain you solve. So you got to paint pictures of pain in such a way that they can relate to it, right? So when you say, I've built a tool that can create the proper draft response to the appropriate emails you get in your inbox, that's interesting. Now, people might get skeptical. I'm like, well, hold on. I don't know. I don't trust that. I'm afraid I'm just going to say the wrong thing. But that's a different response. That means they're interested. It just means you have to prove it a little bit more, which is a whole lot more interesting for me, which is a whole lot more interesting. Well, we can go through your inbox and move them all into these different folders like marketing and this and this. And it's like, that just sounds like a lot of work to me, of like, now I got 6 folders I got to go check. Right. Which I don't. I had this conversation offline. Right. So, anyway, so that's
that makes sense.
So,
we've been playing around with that a bit as well. And I think that is one thing that you've got to do, which is just keep playing around. I actually saw this amazing clip today about Roger Federer talking about, I don't know if you guys saw it. That's
great. Oh yeah.
So impressive.
He gave a commencement speech. Yeah. You should watch it.
Yeah, really well.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. So Archie, how can people get a hold of you? And by the way, for people listening, it's Fyxer, Fyxer.ai. We probably should have said that sooner, but if you're interested in this, cool. But how else can people get a hold of you?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. Like everyone in the world, I'm looking to grow that. I'm not putting a huge amount of effort into it, but please connect away, and ideally send a message. And always open to kind of chat and everything. We also value in person, so we are doing a trip in a couple months' time across the US, meeting customers, and hopefully can see you guys on this one or the next one.
Nice.
And then across Europe as well. So we've got some good stuff coming up, and if you're interested in the product, just hit up our customer service team as well on the site. They're pretty good, and love to help you in any way.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Archie Hollingsworth, co-founder, I should say, of Fyxer.ai. Appreciate you spending some time with us, and we will see everybody next time on the Surf and Sales podcast.
Thanks, guys.